meantime, Apple went through a lot of troublesome periods. We'd go way up, we'd go way down. Our stock could double or halve in just a few months. Why would a company's value double or halve in a short period of time? The bigger something is, you've heard of inertia, the bigger something is, the slower it moves. Big companies rarely go up and down very much. They're more stable. Problem is, Apple had one product at one time, a computer. It was the Apple II. And then a few years after the Macintosh came out, finally it started selling and became the big seller. So then it was Macintosh. When you only have one product, you're so subject to the competition for that one product that things can change rapidly. Now look where Apple is. We have these incredible corporations that are really as big as our computer corporation. iPhones is now our major source of revenues and profits. We've got iPod. We've got the retail stores that are incredible, with people that really help you in a pleasant environment where you like to buy a computer, so unlike computer stores of the past, the old days. We've got the online iTunes store. So many different stores and products and iPads within Apple that if one of them has trouble, the others are covering. No, the company's in great shape. I hope they develop every kind of product that's possible in the world because Apple does it so well. We started out with a culture believing that we were going to take the newest technologies and make products that were easy to use the best possible way. We don't care now about having the most features, the most advanced features. It's more that everything works well and looks good. Beauty to the eye is very important. What was Steve Jobs' role on the first Apple II computer? I had designed every bit of the hardware and software, wrote it all myself. Software, I couldn't afford a program to type it into a computer, so I hand wrote it and figured out what the ones and zeros of my program would be, and I typed the ones and zeros into memory. It's still handwritten. Never ever once went through a computer, never one bug in the whole Apple II. Steve Jobs did the plastic case. The first computer ever to have a plastic case. And he looked at diagrams and chose the shape of it and the size, and that was his start in appreciating the aesthetics of a computer and how it looks and these products. So his foundations really go back to that. We hired an engineer who wanted to hire that could design a better power supply than me, because this engineer could design what was called a switching power supply that generated so little heat we wouldn't need a fan inside the plastic case that traps heat. So for years and years and years, Steve Jobs wouldn't allow a product to have fans in Apple. You know, basically you should use your intelligence and figure the ways around it. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop here and invite your own questions in all sorts of topics, business or engineering, and we'll have a little time for just questions, maybe only about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to meet for, as long as people want to meet me personally outside, I'll meet everybody who wants to say hi. So let's come up with questions. Why don't you come right up here and ask me. Or if you form a line, anybody wants to ask a question, form a line, we'll do it right here on stage.
Me too, I got a key too. I look all anxious.
That's too loud there.
Oh, my mic was off the whole time. Sorry.
It was that.
Oh, these drums?
That's it.
Yeah, now my mic's on. Wow. That's a first. I thought it was on the whole time. Okay, speak the question right here.
I know that there's a stereotype with entrepreneurs that they are expected to rely on innovation, and that you have to be innovative to be an entrepreneur. And my thoughts, sort of, is that it's more important to be able to execute rather than to be innovative all the time. So my question to Steve is, execution versus innovation. What's your
Yes,
thoughts?
you have to have both, but sometimes an engineer could be given an assignment, told do this, and go out and do it. But the inventor type really wants to innovate and think, gosh, I could do this other thing, what if I added that? You know, those little, some dreaming along the way, and I think that's where the really great products come from. Now, if you look at the big, huge companies that you really admire the most, you know, the Facebooks and Apples and Googles and the like, they all came out from young people pretty much, just out of college, trying things that other people didn't recognize, didn't see, had value. And they're trying it in so much a different way than it's ever been done before. And I think our whole industry is, every step that we take and execute is called innovation. But just incrementally making something faster, that's not enough. You should really try to find those technical people. You know, we always talk about Where are we educating, the future engineers and designers? Well, a lot of school teaches you to, their only answer is the same answer everyone else has, and that's anti-creativity. So I'm more on the creative side, and I think we should, I would love to see schools, someday, they never have my entire life, teach kids to think. We learn how to calculate when a canoe's going to meet on a river, but we never have a kid raise his hand and say, no, it won't, because there'll be wind, and nobody really wants to think. Like, they don't learn that you can think, and you can really use your own mind. You just want to listen to authority and believe what they say. I'm not into that. And a good company needs engineers that can get things done, and some of the creative ones that can also come up with the ideas, a little bit different ideas. You got to balance it. Management's important. Okay? Hi.
Hi. I noticed you made a guest appearance on Big Bang Theory a couple of months ago. How exactly did that happen?
Okay, they called my home, and my wife says, well, we don't watch TV, which we don't. And she said she'd have to watch a couple episodes to see if I would like it. She watched it and said, oh, you'd like this show. So I went down, and I met those people. Man, I'm in with them. I can go to any of their live tapings on Tuesdays, and it's such an incredible show. I mean, Jim Parsons is just a god. I'm glad he won the Emmy and the Golden Globe. And so they said I was in this scene where I'm in a restaurant with my wife, and rather than actors, they let my real wife play it. It was so nice. Yeah, so I think I only TiVo 2 shows now, The Big Bang Theory and Dancing with the Stars.
Asking about the music,
My name is Daniel.
like what's your favorite kind of music to listen to while coding?
I have a question.
While relaxing, while
When you have an excellent new product or service and you want to pitch it to a large organization, how do you reach the people of consequence?
Yeah.
That's difficult because people of consequence doesn't always mean people that are open and accepting. And I don't really know. I've never had to be in that position really. How do you reach them? Get a good introduction from the right party. Basically, have confidence in yourself. If you're making a pitch to somebody of importance, don't pitch it like you're kind of wondering if they think this is good. Absolutely. Tell them, this is great. You know what, I've got one friend in Apple. He works on a programming language we have called AppleScript. And he went up against Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs just told him that was just sort of a worthless thing he was working on, and he stood up and said, no, Steve, this is the absolute great thing. It makes an Apple great, and no other computer in the world has what this does, and it lets us make a lot of robotic applications on our own, and really, you've got to stand up and show your confidence. I think they want confidence, and personality is probably more important than what exactly you're doing. When I taught kids for all those years, it was less important what I taught them, more important that I made it fun, motivated them.
Wonderful, thank you.
So, kind of an odd question maybe, but growing up as well as today, what do you say have been your role models that motivated you?
Role models, I know that the way my electronics teacher ran his classes, he wrote every lesson himself. He didn't use pre-written books. So when I taught for 8 years, I used his techniques. I wrote the lessons in the morning, printed them all these color printers, handed them out to the kids when they came in and they worked. And my father had a lot of patience in teaching things and not ever getting mad at somebody and finding ways to really get the learning done. And I followed that example too. And I'd say those are probably my two biggest role models. Yeah.
So some of what Apple is came out of some of the things that came out of the Home Computer Club sort of indirectly. I was wondering, as far as biotechnology goes, you're starting to see a lot of sort of biology-centric, small groups of people, hackerspaces, etc., that are doing a lot of things within the biotech world. I think BioCurious is actually in Silicon Valley. Do you think something like the next Apple might come out of that, and not a pharmaceutical company? Which would be a good
I would totally expect it. I would totally expect it. You can't predict it in advance. It kind of takes somebody that really believes in what they're doing so much, and they're going to keep, I've got a new approach, and they're not in the mainstream. They're not doing things the normal way. And some of those things that are good for one person are good for 1 million people, or 1 billion. And, it's very hard to predict, what's going to go. You just have to work on it. You know what? If you work really hard on something, an idea that you have, and you're pitching all over the place, and it doesn't go for a year, if you came up with one good idea, you can come up with other good ideas, right? Sometimes it's time to just say, maybe think of a different idea. It's hard to call.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Steve, Nick, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming. You are an amazing speaker. Some of the things that you did when you were younger literally make my brain melt. I studied computer systems engineering as an undergrad. I could never have written a programming language.
To be honest, I never knew that they were outstanding things at the time.
Exactly.
I mean, and after Apple happened, I don't even understand why people want to shake my hand. I'm just an engineer who did his job.
I mean, it's really hard for you to convey the level of what you've done to a general audience until you sat down and tried to solve one of these problems and realized how hard it is. So I have to ask you, what's next? We have bigger problems in the world today than ever before. Healthcare,
Right.
energy, education.
Well, I'm glad to hear the happiness you got from that technology. But if you think about it, you're running all these companies, you've got everything in place, and everything's going real great, you're making product after product after product, and you're organizing your divisions, but you're not running around joking with people on the street every day and smiling, and when you die, which one had the happier life? And I wanted to be the happiness. I'd rather be the happy guy who was on the street with nothing. So the biggest problem in the world, all this technology is going to give us more in our life, more free time. It's going to make us happier. Has it? Are we happier? Do we smile more? Smiles minus frowns. I used to have this formula, H equals S minus F. Happiness equals smiles minus frowns. Do we smile more than 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, the cavemen? I can't tell you that we do. I don't believe it. I think they were just as happy. But we have to keep, we have this drive to keep creating new things, and that drive must be trying to get us to our utopia, our heaven. And maybe it is when the machines totally run things. Because we've already lost the battle to them. You can fire a person, but you can't get rid of the machines that run your company.
One last follow-up. What advice would you give to a young engineer to develop their own technical acumen? To young engineers of the future, it feels like we're not teaching them correctly.
Build projects for yourself. As far as schools go, make parts and test equipment available for people to build projects for themselves. And they'll just develop this excitement of building all the little projects they can in the world, and then it won't be just Hong Kong where you find out.
Hi, Steve. My name's Brian.
Hi, how you doing?
I got basically a billion questions for you, but there's only like one or two, and I'm just happy to really meet you because I've heard about you so much through my own personal life because my dad, he's started in electronics and got me into it when I was probably around 8 years old, programming and stuff on a Commodore 64. So the best thing though is, or the only thing that really I can ask you about is, you mentioned you were shy. What really broke you out of that?
What broke me out of it was when Apple started, I was speaking to geek little groups. I only spoke twice in the Homebrew Computer Club to introduce the Apple I computer, describing what chips were on it, and the Apple II computer, describing what chips were on it. Then I started speaking to little clubs of geeks, techies, and explaining to them why I chose this chip and why I wrote some code this way. And I got to move up the ladder. The groups got more and more sophisticated. I went to a group in Phoenix once, and they had like a rules of order in a meeting. I'd never heard of that for a computer club. So all of a sudden I went up a nice smooth staircase to more and more sophisticated audiences, up to the biggest business audiences in the world, and somehow I went along with that and was confident speaking. Went back in high school, and boy, I would be too scared to ever dare raise my hand or talk.
Yeah, that's...
Okay, I'm gonna cut off the line here because what I'm gonna do is meet outside, which has gone really long. Meet outside, and anybody who wants to meet me for any reason, talk to me, ask me questions. Thank